How did you get to that point that you made a decision? I've had so many clients, personal experience where ending a relationship, one you're unhappy and one that you just, I can't take it anymore. Even if you know it's the right decision, it's such a big effort to get out of that and to get to that decision and go, I'm going to go through it. Because even when you want to decide to do it, you've got all these self doubts. How did you get to that point and actually go through with it?
Yeah, and so that point took many years. It wasn't something that happened overnight. It wasn't even something that happened within a year. It took several years of, like I said, that constant feeling of that void, that unhappiness, feeling stuck, feeling imprisoned in your own life. And the irony is that I'm going to work every day. I used to be an emergency department social worker, so I'm working with, all these challenging patients every single day. And then I'm coming home and I'm like, in the same situation. So it was almost like being in the twilight zone, like you're like an observer looking in. And it's like, why am I helping people 8 to 9 hours a day at work, but when I come home, I can't help myself? And it was getting really frustrated with myself. And the point that I think, like you're saying, like, what was that point? The aha moment was probably, I think it was 2018 or 19 is when I finally took that step and we actually separated. And my partner left the home at that point, but we still were working through things. So we actually ended up reconciling for a year. So it
How did
still,
you
sorry, what was the question?
how did you find it when you got back together for that
It,
year?
it was even worse. And now looking back, it's like, well, because neither of us did the work, right? We didn't work on ourselves independently. So we just kind of suppressed. I mean, I know I did. I just suppressed all the issues and I just thought,
Yeah.
okay, well, reconcile means we just get back together, but I didn't really know why. So at that point, I said, okay, if it doesn't work this time, then this is it. So then in 2021, we actually separated again. And that was the moment that we both decided that this was going to be like the final separation. And so that was hard, but like I have a lot of clients who come to me and say like exactly what you said, like, how do you get to that point? And for me, it was either I'm gonna have like a mental health breakdown, like a crisis, and I won't be able to be a mother for my kids, or I got to do something right now. Like I got to do something to get myself out of this, right? Yeah, and so that was that moment, probably about like I guess you could say 6 years ago, where I said like I can't do this anymore.
You knew that was permanent. Did you feel like a relief?
I did. So the first time we separated, it's interesting because I didn't feel that relief. I just felt a lot of guilt. I felt a lot of shame. I felt a lot of it, you said it, heavy emotions, and I didn't want to have any regrets. So that's kind of what drove me to the reconciliation. The second separation, which was the final one, I definitely felt like this heavy weight was lifted off me. And at that point is when I actually started my life coaching journey. So I said, like if I'm feeling like this, there's got to be someone else who feels this way, and I want to be able to actually help that woman, get out of the situation much faster than I did, right? So I
Yeah.
think what it comes down to is like that courage, having that courage, but how do you get that courage? Like, how do you build that when your confidence is so low?
That's my next question. How did you get that courage? Because this is really out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, yeah. So that courage, I think, well, one, I think I always had it. So then when I started doing my own inner child healing, which again was about 5 or 6 years ago, that's when I really started looking at the emotions that I was holding in, like everything that I had trapped, not just from the marriage, I mean from like my teen years, And for those of you who don't know what inner child healing is, it's really going back to those moments, right, where you're a child and dealing with some of the issues that we suppressed. So there was a lot that I had locked in. So started looking at some of those, processing those emotions, and then really letting go. And that was probably the beginning of my healing journey, which I'm still doing it.
Yeah, it's a long process there, especially when you've got the inner child there, because there's so much to come up. You don't realize just how much everyday life you're using the inner child for until
Yep.
you start having that therapy there as well. What made you to decide to start studying and become a life coach?
Yeah, so that was probably it was after the second separation. So 2019, I met someone who was my, I guess you could say, Reiki guide teacher. I started going and seeing this person, and then she actually advised me to do some inner child healing on myself. So I did that deep, intense work with this woman who was amazing. And that's when I started kind of, like I said, my healing journey. So that was, I believe, 2019. After that, I got this email and it was like a life coaching program through the
Yeah,
Louise Hay Foundation. So I said, this is interesting. So I signed up for it, but then it was COVID. So they ended up canceling it. And then a year later, it was put on again after the pandemic. So I attended this course in Banff, Alberta, which was amazing. It was a 10-day program. That's when I started my life coaching certificate program, but I also did more inner child work. And that's kind of where I felt like the resonation was there, like that pull was there where I'm like, I want to do this for myself, but I also want to be able to help others because I found so much value in the inner child healing. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, I can't believe I didn't do this before, but obviously it wasn't the right time.
When did you first start helping other people? When did that first begin?
Well, I mean, like I've been a social worker since
Oh,
2004. So I
yeah.
would
So
say,
I mean, with
yeah,
the life coaching,
yeah, the life
yeah, with
coaching, I
the
would say just a few years ago. Professionally, probably started in about 2022, so a few years ago.
yeah,
Yeah, so that's kind of when I took a different path in career where it's like, okay, now I want to do more intense work with women who are either in unhealthy relationships, toxic relationships, or just stuck in life, right? Because it doesn't always have to be a relationship. You could be stuck
oh,
in career. It could be toxic family relationships, right? Like I have a lot of clients who come to me who say, like, I grew up in a really toxic household, like, with my siblings and my parents. How do I, move forward? Because family, like, how do you let go of family? It's hard.
yeah.
Right.
It is hard. Yeah.
Mhm.
How much satisfaction and fulfillment did you get when you had started actually doing that kind of like therapy and life coaching there? Because it's a different one with social care, isn't it? It's a different type of
Yeah. I mean, I
when the
love it.
first one started
Yeah,
around.
no.
Yeah,
The satisfaction 100, it's like I love it. Like, I could do this work all day, every day. And I love it
yeah,
when I hear like my clients tell me like I took that step or, I made this change in my life. And that same feeling that I expressed before, like that heavy weight lifted off you when someone tells me that, it's like, thank God. Like I'm happy because everyone deserves a life of like happiness and peace and joy, right? We all deserve that. And we all deserve to feel that at least once every day. Like
yeah,
I lived a life where I was unhappy, sad, miserable for day after day. And I just normalized it. I thought it was okay.
yeah. Did you ever realize that's how you were feeling every day?
No,
No.
no, no. I think I
When,
was in a pretty deep state of depression at some point where
yeah.
like I said, it was normalized for me.
Did you get to a point where you thought, I feel terrible, something's not right, or did you get to a point where you thought, I've had enough feeling like this?
I think both. I think I knew something's not right. Like I said, like, if I'm going to work every day and I'm walking people through assessments and treatment plans in regards to their mental health, right? And then I'm coming home and I'm actually going through the same signs, but I was ignoring and numbing and suppressing my own symptoms or behaviors. So I did realize, and then I started isolating a lot. Like, I wasn't really contacting family or seeing family much. I was feeling very emotional. I was crying a lot and I couldn't figure out why, and at one point I started drinking a lot because my
Yeah,
partner was a heavy drinker. So, like I'm like, okay, well, I can't change your behavior, so I'm just going to join. So that was about, I don't even know what year that would have been, but it was a couple of years where I wasn't happy with myself and then I felt even more guilt, right? So then you're like, picking up that glass of wine, but then the next day you feel like crap. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get out of this. So that was also another point, as you said, like, one was it like, this is enough. And I said, I've got to change my life around. Like, I can't keep doing this because I'm self-destructing, but I'm also not a good mentor right now for my kids.
yeah, which is obviously really important, and they can pick up on an atmosphere in the family there as well. What was the first step? Would you say to your, I don't know, what would you say, road to recovery? Would you say?
Yeah, the first step I think was self-awareness, right? So you have to like the inner child healing program
Yeah,
was probably the most amazing and beneficial thing that I did for myself. Obviously guided by like this amazing instructor and person. But I think when people are starting to look at they want change, you have to be aware, right? Like that's the thing. We can't keep numbing and suppressing all these problems or behaviors or challenges that we're experiencing. So for me, it was like awareness. Okay, what's really going on here? Like, what am I feeling and why? And then doing that inner child work, being able to connect it to the past, right? When did I start feeling so unworthy? When did I start feeling like I'm not a priority? When did I start feeling like my life is of no value? Because that's how I was feeling, right? For several years. So I had to really start connecting the dots to, like I said, the earlier years, my teen years, and really see like when did this low self-esteem or confidence start? And then once I was able to do that, I was able to do a lot of healing work, whether it be through like journaling, meditation, all that stuff, some grounding work, and just start like releasing some of that pain. And then also, I think for several years I played that victim role, and I was able to pull myself out of that because that wasn't helping, right? When you're playing the
Yeah,
victim, you're
yeah,
blaming everyone else around you, but you're not really looking in the mirror and saying, okay, well, how did I get to this point? Because I'm also a part of this problem, right? So, yeah.
yeah. I think that takes a lot of strength to get that, and to get out of victim mentality is the easiest thing to get into. Is a victim mentality, especially when everyone's done you wrong, and rightly so. So it's easy to. Problem is that you're the only one that's going to suffer from it in the end. So you have to go from the victim to the survivor there. When did you first feel that you were making progress? When could you tell, you know what, I'm starting to come out of this. I'm starting to feel better about myself. When was that?
Yeah, I think even that took a while because I was
Yeah,
living in this like high adrenaline fight or flight type of life for quite a while. So it took time to come down from that. So I think when I was actually, it was probably when we were actually separated, when I actually had my own space where I was able to come home to peace and quiet, when I was able to actually have a good night's sleep, when I was actually waking up feeling well rested. That's when I started realizing, okay, like this is normal. I didn't think that was normal before. Like there was several years, probably a decade where I didn't sleep well at night. I would sleep maybe a few hours at night because my mind was always in overdrive, right? Like
yeah,
you're anxious, you're just scattered, or just waiting for that other shoe to drop where it's like, okay, what's going to happen tomorrow? Like, what's the fight that I'm going to have to deal with tomorrow? So yeah, it was probably when I had my own space where I was able to actually do things in peace and quiet. But also, I would say, if anyone's listening and they want just some simple things to do that you're like, okay, how do I ground myself? Like honestly, that journaling is huge. I do that still,
yeah.
but I mean,
Doubt.
yeah, do that every day. Do some type of mindfulness, like I started obviously taking care of my physical health more as well, where I was working out a lot, but spending a lot of time in nature is good for me. I
Yeah,
love going for walks, sitting by the water, meditation, breath work is huge, especially with somebody who has anxiety or you're, like I said, like living in that fight or flight. Belly breathing, amazing. So just little things like that, I started incorporating into my daily routine, which I found very helpful.
how long do you think it took you to get into that positive habit? Because that's a lot of things to remember, and you probably have it yourself where you tell a client to start doing breathing exercises, something simple. You speak to them next week. How did you get on? Oh, I forgot all about that. So it takes a lot to get into that routine and be a consistent habit. How long did it take yourself to do all of those things each day?
So it took me probably a few months to get used to that routine, but now, I mean, obviously I do it every day. But what I would say is to someone who's just starting, give yourself like a challenge. Say, let's start with 30 days. Try to be as consistent as possible for 30 days, right? Because that's how long it usually takes for our mind to rewire something new. So give yourself like, or if 30 days is too much, start off with like 15 days. For me, it took several months because, like I said, it wasn't something I was used to, but I said, I'm going to keep trying because I like the way I feel when I do meditate. I like the way I feel when I do get outside and go for a nice walk, right? So, if you're working with someone, like that's something that I do with my clients is I actually walk them through the grounding exercises. So we do the belly breathing together. We'll do like a visualization together. We'll do some healing work. I think forgiveness work is also huge for anyone who's been through trauma.
Yeah, tell me about the forgiveness work. That's a really big one, and
Mm.
vast majority of my clients have suffered trauma, usually childhood trauma, and a lot of them, and I can say from my own personal experience, the hardest thing people can do is forgiveness, whether it's to themselves or whether it's to somebody that's caused the trauma. So tell me what you do when it comes to that.
Yeah, so there's different forms of forgiveness work, right? So we can do that through some really deep meditations and visualizations. My favorite thing to do with a client is a forgiveness letter. So you would write it to whoever it is that you're, wanting to write that letter to. And there's certain ways that you write that letter, but at the end, I always say, like, I want you to end the letter with, I forgive you, I thank you, and I love you, right? Which is really hard to do, and sometimes you may not be ready to forgive that person. So I think the key is to understand, first of all, are you ready to forgive that person? Because if you're not, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I think forgiving someone who's caused you trauma and separating that from forgetting, two different things, right? We're not saying we
Yeah,
forget what happened. And also, you're not forced to forgive someone if you're not ready. So the key to remember is, why do you want to hold on to that burden or that negativity? Because it's no longer your burden to carry, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where the forgiveness starts from. So it's about understanding, okay, do I just want to not carry this burden anymore and start from there? Or am I really truly ready to forgive that person, which is a different, different task.
How do you find your clients deal with that? Some
You know,
easier than others.
some easier than others. I would say some are ready and some are not. Like, some, like I have a client recently who told me this week, she's like, I can't forgive my mom for what she did. And I said, that's
Yeah,
totally okay. And, you don't have to because your pain is valid. What you experienced is valid. And you don't want to take that away from someone because it's a part of trauma is like we get silenced, right? You're not able to express your truth. And I think if you kind of allow that person to feel how they want to feel, that's okay. But why can't you write a letter to forgive yourself, right? Because when you're doing forgiveness work, it's not just to forgive the other person, it's also to give forgiveness and compassion to yourself.
yeah. It's such an emotional thing to write letters in therapy, whether it's to somebody that's died, whether it's to a parent or partner that's treated you terribly there, and to yourself. And for me, one of the real emotional ones is to write to the younger you as the older one. It works wonders. Most people probably burst into tears, which is always a good thing. But there's so much you can get out of that, and I think the fact that one of the key parts of what you do is to get people to write letters and do journaling. You can see why it'll have such an impact there as well. How do your clients find the journaling there? I'd imagine they get a lot from it.
They do, yeah. So, I mean, if it's something new to them, I think it takes them a little bit longer to just to kind of get started, but majority of my clients love it. And I always say, like, journaling doesn't mean you write letters to, like these long, long, like entries. Write something like gratitude, like, just do a little bit of gratitude work every day if that's all
Yeah,
you want to do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, even me, I don't journal every day. I try my best to, but there's days where I don't feel like it, and that's okay. So on those days, I might just do something like I am grateful for three things and write out what those three things are. I think, journaling can be, there's no right or wrong, right? You can do,
exactly.
yeah, it's kind of whatever I guess you resonate with, whatever comes to mind in terms of what you want to release. But our words have so much power that I think it's super important to get them out of our minds and onto paper.
Yeah, I say it to clients all the time when I mentioned German, because they usually often they put a face on going, really? So does it work? And I was like, trust me on this. What am I going to write? It doesn't matter. And I'll say to them that once you get started, I said, I promise you, the dam will burst and it'll all come out. And the only problem you've got is you won't be able to stop. And they're like, really? You see them the following week, and the ones that have done it are going, believe it, I couldn't stop writing. I got so much out. Harris got there as well. So
Yeah.
it's such a strong thing to do there as well.
I think the other, which I touched on before, and you probably do this in your practice too, is that compassion work for self. And like you said, like, when you take yourself back to that younger version of you, that's when you get, people really open up and feel vulnerable and get really
Oh,
emotional. But same as
yeah.
that compassion work, because we're not used to giving ourselves compassion. And when they start
Yeah.
doing that work, it's amazing what comes up, right? When you're able to say, I forgive myself for being
Yeah.
that little child who had no choice but to suffer at that time, or, whatever was happening for you at that in your life at that point. But that compassion work is amazing as well to get people to really get vulnerable and get real with how they feel.
I've had it with clients where they're like, yeah, I'm always saying horrible things about myself. And I'm like, what'd you say? And they say all these awful things about themselves. And I was like, why? I don't know. I'm like, would you say that to a stranger down the street? No, I'd never do that. So why'd you do it yourself? I don't know. And they're just not, when I, and I've said it to so many clients is that be kind to yourself. And the amount of times when I've said those words, be kind to yourself, the amount of clients that have burst into tears because it's never entered their head to be kind to themselves. So I can imagine it's really emotional for you. What sort of compassion work do you tend to do with your clients?
Compassion work that I do is more like mirror work. That's like one of my favorite things to do is so standing in front of the mirror, looking at yourself, look into your eyes and really be kind to yourself. Tell yourself three kind things, three nice things, which sometimes is really hard, right? Even for me, when I started mirror work like 6, 7 years ago, I couldn't do it because
Yeah,
it didn't align with me, right? I didn't believe it. It took some time and I felt like it was so unnatural. And then so I
yeah,
stopped. And then my instructor at the time, she said, keep doing it, like keep doing it, don't stop. So I did. And
yeah,
now it's like not an issue, but I get it when, my clients tell me like, you told me to do this mirror work, but it doesn't feel right.
yeah. I mean, I've had it with clients where I'm like, you know, tell me one thing you like about yourself. And they're struggling. And I'll go, tell me things that you don't like about yourself. And they literally just always reel off a list of the things they don't like about themselves. So at least you can gauge, yeah, we've got a lot of work to do, because you would have had it yourself so many times. Some people don't realize they're not kind to themselves. They don't look at themselves in a positive way, and they absolutely struggle. You can always see like the fear on their face there as well. How do you get them to kind of believe in themselves, to actually make that big jump to literally say something positive about themselves? What do you do?
Yeah, like I mean, for me, it's really important to share my personal story because I feel like if somebody understands that, okay, you were also at this point, like everybody has like a rock bottom. So if you can kind of share that journey, I mean, if you're comfortable with your client, like, listen, I've been there. I've been at the point where, it's been very dark. I've been through depression. I've had anxiety, probably still do. Like I've had the stages of being not sleeping well and, having insomnia, the self-doubt, the negative thought patterns about myself. Like I've been through it all. Doesn't mean that I've reversed everything and I'm totally perfectly, happy and healthy now. I mean, I try my best, but like I like to really connect with my clients and say, like, listen, everything you feel is normal. It's natural. And a lot of people go through it, but you can get through this, but you're going to have to be committed, right? And that's something that I do in the life coaching with my clients is like, if you want to be the best version of yourself, you're going to have to really commit to this because, this is like an investment that is the most amazing investment.
That's exactly how I describe therapy to clients, because a lot of people come and they're like, oh, I'm not sure, it's really expensive. And I'm like, this will probably be the best, most important investment you make in your life. When you use the word investment, it almost totally changes the dynamics. They're not paying out hundreds of pounds a month just to talk to somebody. They're investing in their self. And one of the things that I try to emphasize and get clients to do is to build their life around therapy, not therapy around their life. Because I've had so many clients, Lee, I've got overtime, I've got to work, there's a shift swap, I can't cancel it. And they're having one session in four, they're paying for four, but they're having money, not going to do anything. But when you get clients, and I've got clients at the moment where they have built their life around therapy, therapy is their priority. And they're the ones that will always get the results because, like you said, they're consistent and they're looking forward to it there as well. So that's the ones that get the results, and that's why there as well.
Yeah.
How do you find with what you do the level of consistency? Does it vary amongst the clients you have, or do you in general get ones that buy into it and stick to it consistently?
Majority of my clients are consistent, and that's why I do that free discovery call initially, just to kind of see if we're a good fit together, right? Like, is this person a good fit for my program and vice versa, right? There has to be, if you're going into all these sensitive topics about your life, you want that person to feel comfortable and safe, especially the type of work that I do. Like, I always tell my clients, like, you're in a safe environment. I want you to feel like you can be open and really be vulnerable because these are not easy things to talk about. And some of my clients, like I do offer two different modes where it's one-on-one coaching, but also the group coaching. And some clients will tell me right off the bat, like, I'm not doing the group coaching because I can't open up about
Yeah,
my life in front of other women, or other people. And that makes sense, right? I get it. So yeah, so consistency is important. But that's something that I usually mention right in the beginning. And I do tell my clients, like, if you're going to do this, you're with me for 12 weeks, or, however long the program is. So that they're aware. But yeah, usually I would say the consistency is good and people do stay committed because they like what they're working through. And I think they like the results. And in between, they always get some homework where they can kind of do some more processing on their own.
all your courses 12 weeks long, are they? Or can you ever have any that's ongoing?
Yeah, so I do the one-on-one coaching is 12 weeks. So it's
Yeah.
we meet once a week for 12 weeks. The master class is just something that I offer, which is a free program, and that's offered every few weeks. It's only an hour class. And then I also do group coaching, and that also will be, sorry, that's 8 weeks. So the group coaching
Eight
is,
weeks.
yeah, an 8 week program.
Do you get clients that have done the 12 weeks and then they come back because they want to do more?
Definitely, yeah. So I've got clients who will come back sometimes for another 12, and then sometimes they want to tag on like another 6 sessions or something like that. So then we can cater it to whatever they need at that point.
Yeah, that's great. That's when you know something's working. They've really bought into it there as well. And
Exactly.
what are you looking to do in the future with this? Because it sounds like it's going really well. It's growing. and you've got a lot of people that are interested in them. With everything you're doing, just tell them as a therapist, I know everything that you're doing, that's going to get results. That's going to get positive results. All the things that you're doing there. So what's your ambition next with everything there, Angie?
My ambition for, I guess, for the future would be just to get this message out there and share my message with as many people as I can, that trauma doesn't define you. You know, we have to be able to work through these processes so that we can be, like I said, that best version of yourself. And I don't know what's possible because I've been through it. So, you know, and I've helped many of my clients. So yeah, my ambition would be just to kind of get that message across to as many people as possible, to help as many people heal as I can. And other projects that I'm working on, I'm currently working on a book. I have my own podcast as well, so which hopefully you'll be
Yeah,
on soon. And
yeah,
so that is just similar to this, like it's to really have that expression of communication and voice, right? Just to kind of express whatever it is that's going on for you so that you can help other people, right? Or other individuals that need this support. Because I feel like a lot of people are struggling with pain, especially with everything that's going on in this world right now. There's so much
totally agree.
pain, there's so
Yeah,
much hurt. And I feel like if you have the right person to guide you, you can get through it, right? And start to heal.
yeah. It's like having the right therapist. And like recently, I've took on quite a few new clients, and a lot of them have transferred over from therapists that weren't right for them. And luckily enough, they've had good experiences with myself. And a lot of them have messaged me or in the next session and told the difference. I mean, one, just I'm doing something right that gives me a lot of satisfaction or whatever as well. But it's so important to have that right relationship, that right connection, that right therapist, that right life coach there, because it just makes all the difference. Without that, it's not going to work. And it sounds like so many people out there have got a lot of confidence and belief in you and want to come to you there as well.
Yeah.
And the message you got is just is such a positive one. I've listened to you, like the podcast that you do, and the interviews are great. The whole podcast. It just sounds like a comforting podcast to listen to. You know, it's a really easy listen to conversation there. And when you see like the clips on like social media, everybody seems chilled and relaxed. Nobody's on edge. It just seems like a real smooth conversation.
Yeah, and that's the goal, right? Like you just want people to be comfortable and conversate about whatever's important to them because everybody has a journey. You know, sometimes my clients will tell me, well, I don't really have much going on in my life. There's not much, you know, that I can share with you. And no, like everybody has a journey. You know, you don't have to say that, like not everyone will have significant trauma in their life, but what you mentioned is everybody does suffer from things like being hurt at some point in their life. Majority of people do suffer from like low confidence or low self-esteem at some point in their life, which then will connect to something else that gets triggered later on in life, right? So, like I said, like everyone has a journey, and if you can start to recognize that and then be at a point where you can share that message with others, you will help so many people, right? Like I always tell my clients, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your life. I'm not going to magically change your life and make it all better by tomorrow, but I'm here to guide you and give you the right tools so that you can start shifting your mindset and creating change for your life, right?
Yeah, I think so. And that's the thing. You're not there to fix people's lives. You can't decide for them to do. But if they put the work in with what you provide for them, it's going to make a real positive difference. And as always, people struggle with self-esteem,
Mm.
confidence, self-worth, and with everything you're going to do that for them, that's going to help them grow that, and that gives them the strength and belief to go on and keep working and making good choices and improving their own lives there as well. That's a real positive thing there as well.
Yeah.
What's the book that you're writing at the moment?
So it's a memoir. It's a sort of collab between memoir and self-help. Hopefully by next year it'll be ready. But yeah, just something I'm working on.
I
And
think
I'm writing it
just
myself because I know a lot of people are writing, but a lot of people are using
yes,
like AI tools and things like that. So I've been working on this for a year because I'm actually writing it myself. And I actually entered a writing program a year ago just to kind of get some guidance on, you know, what it means to write, like, you know, write as an author. Uh, so it's been a lot of work.
yeah, and but you'll get a lot from it there as well. I mean, obviously with the podcast, I've had a lot of authors on there, and so many of them have said just how therapeutic it is, especially when they've had like trauma and they're writing their story or whatever, just getting it out there as well. And it seems like if you've got a podcast, if you're a therapist, if you're a life coach, kind of should be writing a book. And I kind of get that now. You know, I'm there. you know, I've got to do the same now as well. So,
Good.
but I think it adds to your value that
Exactly.
you've actually got a book there as well. And also, people's going to listen to your podcast. They're going to have you there as a coach there. They don't want to know what your story is there. So the fact that you're doing it where there's your actual memoir part of it, but also there's going to be some self help in there as well. It's a really good combination there. So that's going to help a lot of people there. So certainly look forward to when that comes out. Have you got any idea when it's likely to be finished, or is it just as
I've
and
been
when?
kind of, I have been pulling my, like dragging my feet right now. So it was supposed to be done this fall, but I'm a little behind. So hopefully by spring.
Yeah, but you're pretty busy though. You've got a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes like I said, like, with family and work
Yeah,
and like a podcast, you know how it is. And then you start
yeah,
getting into like social media and branding and all that. It gets a little overwhelming at times, but yeah, I'm hoping by spring. But I think one thing that you touched on, when you actually write yourself, it's, like it's kind of a form of journaling as well, but it was very healing. Sometimes it's
yeah,
not the nicest experience to go through, like, past and remember all those things, but it was definitely a healing process.
yeah. It is a healing process. So many people that wrote books and said how it is. I spoke to somebody that's a child sex abuse survivor, wrote a book, and they got so much from writing it, even though it was hard work writing, going back to those memories. They still got a lot from it there as well. So I
Yeah.
think if you're a therapist and you've been through trauma or a life coach or whatever, to actually go and do that again, not only is it going to help other people, it's also going to help yourself there. You
Yeah.
get a lot.
And the other thing I think that I want to touch on is perspectives, right?
Mm,
Like we talked a little bit about being that victim in a situation, right? Or your life or whatever it was going on for you at that point.
yeah,
So sometimes my clients will say, like, "Oh, how do I get from victim to warrior? Like, how do you, make that leap?" And it's not easy. It does take, again, it's going to be that time you put into yourself. It's going to be, are you actually doing the mindfulness work every day? Like, all those things. But at the same time, I think it's also, are you ready to accept the truth, right? Are you ready to look at what some of your own demons are or your own flaws are and then try to shift them? Because if we can't do that, if we're going to keep avoiding, suppressing, numbing, whatever you want to call it, you're not going to move forward, right? So, when I look back and so this came up as I was writing, I had to really look back at the characters, which are real people in my story, and look at the perspectives of every individual. Like, like I said, everybody has a journey. So even though the marriage didn't work out, it doesn't mean that either of us was a bad person. We were literally doing the best we could. But you
yeah,
have to be able to kind of look at each story and say, well, what was your upbringing like? Like, what made you act this way or what made you make the choices you did? And the same goes for me. So I had to really look at that as well. Like I looked at like, why was I attracting such unhealthy relationships into my life?
yeah.
So I think it's about getting real with who you are and why do we do what we do, right? So when you start asking that why, that's when you can actually make that shift forward.
With some of your clients, how do you find that they go from victim to survivor through your with your process? Is there like epiphany moment, right? That's it, or is it just through the consistency of everything that you're teaching them and they're doing on a daily basis that's transferred them from victim to survivor? What do you reckon?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I wouldn't say that it's all me because I think people, when they're ready to make a change in their life, one, it's courage, but two, I feel like a lot of it, from what I've seen with my clients and myself too, is you just can't take it anymore. You're like, enough is enough, right? Where you have to make a choice. It's like either, okay, do I want to be mentally stable and live a good life, or do I want to live this life where I'm unhappy every single day? So sometimes people get to that point, right? And I'm sure you can relate where it's like, okay, enough is enough. Like something's got to change. And then that's when you reach out and say, how? Like who can help me do this?
Yeah. When you look at your life now, how different is it to when you first started out in your journey? What would you say?
I would say very different and for different reasons. So, like I said, if you look at 10 years ago, maybe a decade ago at my life, superficially, it was amazing. You're having a great time. Like you have all the material items that we needed. You're entertaining, you're traveling, doing all the nice things that people like to enjoy and do. I wouldn't say that I don't have that now. So I like to incorporate a little bit of that now, but I think I focus more now on health mental health, having peace of mind, and really just being present. And that's something that I found really hard to do, to get used to, because before it was always living in kind of like autopilot mode. So
Yeah,
just doing, but not really being present. And now I'm really focusing on trying to be more present for myself, but also for my kids. So I would
yeah,
say life has changed for the better, but in different ways.
yeah. And I would imagine with everything you're doing, there's a lot of fulfillment there, which is so important.
Exactly. This work is like really, like I think people who are in our profession, it's something that is innately you, right? Like you're there to kind of help people. And I don't know when you realized that, but I think I realized that in my like early adulthood, like in my 20s, that this is what I want to do. I just didn't know how.
I just did a career change from sales, which was meaningless. You could earn really good money, but I'm reading a piece of paper every single day, making quite good money. Uh, and I was reading the book, The Happiness Hypothesis, and I was just reading about myself there, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And somebody suggested life. I was thinking about life coaching, and then somebody said to me about being a counsellor, and I was like, what? And then I started looking into it, and before you know it, you've done a qualification, then another one, then you're off to university, and then you get to a point where you're so far down the line, you're never going to stop there. But one of the main things for me, probably for yourself, there is I thought I want to be there for other people. I genuinely want to. Probably the first time in my life that I thought I genuinely want to make a positive difference to other
Yeah.
people instead of just like myself there as well. And that's one of the biggest fulfillments and satisfaction I get being a therapist is to make a genuine difference. And also with the podcast, it's not just about doing a podcast. I actually spoke to a couple of my clients about when I was setting up the podcast, what would you want from podcasts? And they said they want people that have got the adversity where they can relate to those stories, but they want to hear how that person's changed and they've gone on to thrive because they want to feel inspired. And
Mhm.
that gives me a lot of the fact that somebody listening in can get something positive from that as well.
I
And
agree.
that's how
Yeah.
I get fulfillment as well. I'm guessing it's the same with you with your podcast.
Yeah, like the theme of the podcast is empowerment, healing, transformation, which again, some people might say, well, I haven't been through that, but I don't agree with that. I think everybody has something to share. I think
Yeah,
everybody can share something along the lines of transformation, healing, empowerment, surviving, becoming, maybe just resonating with your true self. Like, even that's a journey. Like, because a lot of people, like I said, we live in autopilot mode, right? Where it's like you work, maybe you have kids, you don't have kids, but you're just kind of doing things in routine. But what happens is a lot of my clients, when they get to the point where they're like in their 40s or 50s, they're like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like they don't have an identity anymore, right? So for me, it's really important. Okay, let's tap into the real you, like who were you in your younger years, and what were your passions? What is it what was something that fueled you, that creative side of you? And then we really tap into that person to see what they can do now, or what they can actually reflect on to bring that passion and joy into their life again. And I think that's super important, because we often will suppress who we really are, right?
yeah. Different reasons. People take it out of them. You'll never do this. You
Yeah.
won't do that. And they withdraw and they give up on their dreams. Their life gets in the way. There's so many reasons. And I think if you can get, for me, again, going from doing a career that was almost like meaningless to doing something that you actually enjoy, the difference is just, you can't compare.
Yeah. So what made you do the shift? Like I know, like you're saying, the career was meaningless, felt meaningless to you, but what was that moment for you where it's like, okay, I got to get out of this?
It was reading The Happiness Hypothesis, and you read just literally read about my own. They could have written it about me. It's a book that I recommend all the time to read. It's really good book. And I just thought I'm not happy. The money I was earning was good money, but I was no better off because my expenses had just gone up. So I was spending more money. I've got the time. So there's not really anything to show for it there as well. And I was working all the way through the month just to get to that paycheck. That was it. And then it was pretty much gone a few days later. And there's guys that are earning, it's very sort of like Wolf of Wall Street sort of job. People are earning lots of money, but it's all gone like the next day. And I thought there's more to me than this. And
Mm.
it was one of the first times in my life I thought I actually really want to do this. And I've always liked psychology, so that helped there as well. And the more that I discovered about therapy and counselling, and the more I enjoyed it and the more I got into it. And for once I was like, you know what, I actually really want to do this. And I actually think I'm going to be quite good at this. And then that was it. So it was a life changing moment. And now obviously
Yeah.
podcast with the brands and all, everything like that, it's expanded, it's grown, and there's obviously a lot more to come there for myself. I'm grateful that I made at least one good choice in my life, you know.
Well, I think what you did is you trusted your intuition, right? Which again is really important to do.
For once.
And that's
I
something I
mean,
talk to my clients about a lot. Like, what is your gut telling you, and don't ignore it, right? Because I think our intuition is so strong. So you got to be able to trust it. So
yeah.
that's hard to do because we often live a life where our decisions are driven from fear. So put the fear aside and really listen to your gut. And that's going to guide you down that journey that's meant for you.
And that's what happened with me, because usually you're taking a job that you don't want. Is that enough money in there? What's the hours? I'll do it. And your heart's not in the job. I had small kids at the time. I think I was like separated. And I was going to have to juggle going to university while working full time. There's no way I could work part time. So I had to do a full time job and almost a full time course. All that. And I just thought, I'll figure it out. Other people do. With a bit of juggling around, you just manage to get through it there as well.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I went with my gut instinct there as well. And I felt my confidence growing to a point where I got to a point in my, because you turn up at university and you're like, oh my God, I'm in my 40s here, and what am I doing here? But I actually just pushed through it. And then you get to a point where you've passed a big part of the course, and you can see the end in sight. So I
Mhm.
actually realized that no matter what comes my way now, nothing's going to stop me. I am going to qualify and go and do what I want to do, no matter what. And when I actually had that moment, I knew no matter what. That was the first time I thought, yeah, I'm actually going to do this, because there's no way, no matter what is thrown at me, that I will fail it because I've done too much and it's gone on too long, because we're obviously several years down the line. And the minute that I kind of had epiphany, I knew that my confidence was there. I knew that I would pass. I knew I'd qualify. That was a great feeling, because it's a rare one to have. I don't know about yourself, if you had anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, no. And while you're talking, I was thinking, like, what comes first? Is it confidence? Is it your gut, your intuition? Is it courage? Like, because they all kind of go hand in hand. Yeah.
For me, gut instinct and actually going with it for once. For me, the confidence grew as I got into the course, believing in myself. So that was like what I was
Mm.
actually going to do there as well.
Right.
So I think the confidence definitely wasn't there at the beginning,
Yeah.
because I'm going to be, when people speak to me, see me, they're like, you're a therapist. So to be in like a sales job, and you go, yeah, I'm going to be a therapist. What, you? What? No, really? Seriously? So I'm not worried about convincing other people. I need to believe myself that that's something
Exactly.
I'm actually capable of doing. So not that I was not believing in myself, I just decided to show up. I just show up for college. I just show up every week, do what I want to do until they realise I'm not good enough and they boot me off the calls. I'm going to keep going. Well, I've actually passed that one. Then let's just do the next one. Well, I've passed that one. Well, I'm at university now. Well, maybe let's just keep going with her. And then suddenly I'm like, well, I've got these qualifications. I'm at university. Maybe I can do it. And then the confidence starts to come in there as well. But it originated from, well, once, let's go with my gut instinct.
Yeah. And trusting yourself, right?
Yeah, for once.
Which I think a lot of people have a tough time doing because, what's like I always say, like, okay, what's the underlying fear? If you can't trust yourself or you can't go with your gut feeling, what's the underlying fear? What's coming up for you? And so for me, most of my clients will say, well, it's that fear of judgment, it's that fear of failure, it's that fear of shame, and so then we have to
Yeah.
work on those things.
I think for me, it was because there was a lot of pressure, because I didn't want to do sales anymore. It's a high burnout. I just didn't want to do it. For every one good sales job, there's 1,000 that's terrible. And if I didn't qualify as a therapist in my 40s, I didn't know what I was going to do. Literally, I didn't have any backup plan. I didn't have anything at all. And I pointed out to my oldest son about studying. He's done amazingly well now. But when he was like sort of 13 or 14, he wasn't interested in school. And then sort of like overnight, he just turned into like the perfect student, working unbelievably hard. I said, because I was in Cyprus on holiday and I was waiting for my qualifications to come through. And I said to him, I said, you do not want to be where I am, stood in your 40s, waiting for a qualification to do something you want to do. And literally everything is hanging on this. And when it come through, I didn't even want to read it. I just wanted to see the word pass. I didn't care about what, is there a pass? Yes or no? Yes. And it come up with a pass. I'd take it. And I had no enjoyment from it. All I had was relief, nothing else. And I said to my oldest, I said to him, you don't ever want to go through that. You want to qualify and be able to enjoy it. I'm just relieved now. That was it. So it was kind of like
Mm.
a valuable life lesson for him there as well, and for myself there. So I was like, I'm never going to let myself be in this position again. So with everything, like the podcast, like with my brand, it's expanded, it's expanded. Let's keep on growing, let's keep on evolving there. And
Yeah.
another one, I don't know about yourself, for me, it's like making up for lost time. There's wasted years in my 20s, 30s. I could have done all these things. Well, let's try and make up for it now. I don't know if you've had anything like that at all.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree. I feel like the 20s and 30s was just like it's like a blur, like, and it's like, well, like you said, just make up for lost time because you can't do anything to change that. But I think that's a part of being, present and trying to be as present as possible each day where you're like, I'm really enjoying this, cup of coffee or, whatever. I'm
Yeah,
really enjoying this work that I'm doing or this, I don't know, this trip that I'm going on, just being present as possible
yeah,
versus before I'd always be thinking future, future, future or
yeah,
past. Yeah, like you get
yeah.
stuck and it's like this crazy toxic cycle.
Yeah, there's none of that living in the moment. And now I try to live in the moment. It's like if you go to like a music concert, everyone's getting their phones out to video a song that they're never going to watch again. Doesn't sound the same. I'm in that moment, and for years I was too busy thinking. I'd be at like a concert, and I'm thinking about after the concert so I can tell people about the concert instead of being in it and enjoying it. So
Mhm.
I've learned over time to live in the moment, make the most of it. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got it with your client. Sometimes I get, especially a new client, that come and they got pen and paper and they're ready to start writing down. And they're going to write, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put all that away. If you really want to write something, write it at the end. Be present in the moment now. Worry about what you're going to do after that, because you won't maximize your session by too busy thinking about what you're doing afterwards there. So it
Yeah.
is important. And I think if you can get to being in that moment, it makes your life again more fulfilled. You get so much
Mhm.
more out of life, and it doesn't pass you by as quickly as when you're just too
Yeah.
busy thinking about what you're going to do next.
Yeah, and all these things are like ingrained behaviors, right? They're things that we've been doing for so long that, like you said, like that client who takes out the pen and paper, and now that happens a lot where I say, like, why do you need to do that right now? Like, I can always email you at the end of session and give you all these notes or, whatever, or your homework. But I think if for one client it came up, it's like, well, as a child, I was always, my dad was really hard on me and I really had to get really good grades or, come home with A's or whatever, like, so it's that validation and we get stuck in these ingrained patterns, right? Where it's like, I have to write all this down, or maybe I'm a failure, or maybe I'm not going to get it, or I'm going to be judged, right? So it's interesting because little things like that, where someone else might not see them as a pattern, we're able to pick up on it and say, hey, hold on, like let's slow down here. I want you to pause. Let's look at this pattern because this is no longer something that you need to carry with you.
Yeah, and I think especially with people that's been in trauma, they're often never in that moment because they're always in fight or flight. They're
Yeah.
always, you know, thinking
Yep.
about things that's making them anxious, what's going to happen, and so they can't relax as well. So to
That's
be
true.
able to do the ground and work to get them to be in the moment, that's really going to help them come out of that fight or flight and feel safer there as well. So that's a real big positive
Yeah.
process progress that they're going to make there as well.
That's right. And I think regardless of this type of work, I mean, it's amazing. We're doing it for, like you said, we're doing this to help others. But I also think like it's going to be so amazing to teach this work to the next generation, right? Like I do a lot of mindfulness work with my own kids now where, they don't like it, but I make them journal. But I want them to be able to really know and understand that they are allowed to express how they feel, that they're allowed to open up about, whatever it is that's going on. If you're feeling angry, yes, express yourself, right? Whereas I think from our generation and prior to, it wasn't okay to be angry. It wasn't okay to be sad. It's not okay to
Yeah,
cry, especially for a male, right? And so I think the work that we're doing is amazing because we're teaching that next generation that, you know what, it's okay to feel however you feel and to love yourself and to love others. And what does love mean to you? And what does it mean to feel safe, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. You probably would have noticed that just as much as myself. But if I'm like watching, I don't know, some like reality TV program that I'm trying not to watch, and there's people in their like early 20s, the way they talk now is completely different to how well I do or would have done at that age. And that the generational change in language there, they're actually using a lot of therapy words there. You hear like words like boundaries, you know, toxic relationship. I mean, I didn't know what a toxic relationship was. I had no idea, even if somebody's is right, is obvious in front of you there. So I think where the sort of the therapeutic words are coming into mainstream everyday life is a good thing there as well. And where mental health is becoming far more mainstream, hopefully it becomes everyday life for a lot of people and it becomes like the norm. Like when I was like teenager, nobody really went to the gym. Now pretty much everyone goes to the gym. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of want the same for like understanding and knowledge of mental health. So I
Mhm.
think with your kids and like mine, that's only going to help them out. Make it,
Exactly.
they're not going to go through what we would have done, which is isolation, not being able to speak to people there as well.
Yeah, and kids learn what they live, right? So really, and that's something I remind myself every day. It's like being present also means that these children are absorbing and watching and learning what they live. So if you want them to, again, to be the best version of themselves and to have confidence and to have courage, you're really going to have to be that person yourself, right? You're going to have to be a good mentor, but how do you get there? And that's again, that's a part of the work that we do, right? Like where it's like, yeah, you know what? You can be that person. You can be that role model for your child. And a lot of my clients will say, well, I want to do things totally different than how I was raised, or, like, I can't repeat that cycle, that pattern. Okay, well, that starts from now. Let's get
Yeah.
going. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of younger clients, they're worried about repeating cycles that their parents done. And I always say to them that you've come to therapy, that's not going to happen, and here's why. So there seems to be more awareness now
Yes.
with people. So that's a really good thing to be able to do. You really got a head start when somebody's aware of what they need to change or what they don't want to be like.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And, like I always say to, even to myself, again, that compassion work is important, but also be gentle with yourself. Like if you don't see progress in a week or a month, that's okay. Like let's just keep moving forward because a lot of my clients will say that like it's been so long and I don't see, any shift and I'm like, are you kidding me? Like so then I will literally sit there and say, this is what you've done differently since you
Yeah,
started therapy. Like and I point out, sometimes 5 things, 10 things, like look at all these things that have changed in your life and they sit back and they're like, okay, you're
yeah,
right. Right. So it's
yeah,
really hard. It's really easy for us to be hard on ourselves and say, like, nothing's changing for me, but it actually is. It's a slow movement, right? Because we're
yeah,
so used to having things. We want things organized. We want things in control. We want to see changes quickly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an amazing lady on the podcast, and she did 6 years of journaling because her husband died and how to get over it. And one day she stopped journaling, and she is always doing gratitude lists, and it was brilliant because I was giving her all these scenarios that she couldn't possibly have any gratitude for, and she just knocked them out of the park straight away.
Wow.
Everything I said, she just dealt with that. And she was saying that with her gratitude, even if something bad happens, she can find gratitude in that. She said the problem that people do is they focus on the problem, not what the actual positive thing could be there. And the problem is the thing that could be positive out of, you've got to
Mhm.
look for it, you've got to work for it. It might take time for that positive thing to come along there. Like you said, people want instant results and it's not there. And if it's not there, they're going to focus on the negative side of it. And when she
Mm.
told me that, I was just like, yeah, do you know what? That really makes sense. That is so, so true. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's very easy for us to gravitate towards negativity, but even in toxic relationships or whatever you want to call it, unhealthy relationships, I always say I never regret any relationship that I was in, even the marriage. I still say like there was a lesson that I learned, right? So that's kind of what I teach my clients as well. Like, no, let's look at it in a different way. We're not going to look at it as it was a waste of your time or it was, regretful or resent or whatever. Like, let's look at this as what did you learn from this experience? What did you learn about yourself? Like, because you always evolve from every relationship or every experience we have. And so I think that's something that is super important to mention is that let's look at things like you said, like with the woman you just mentioned. What was the lesson, but what did you learn? How did you evolve? And what gratitude can you take out of it? Right? Because I just think that every lesson is important for you to get to that next chapter of your journey.
Yeah, you never know what that next chapter is going to be. It's often completely different what you expect. Life, you never know, and that's why I say to clients that are really struggling is that never give up because
Mhm.
something could totally change in a split second. You just never know. You might get an email. It happened to me once. I remember once I was like struggling with like a job, an awful sales job, and out of nowhere, I got a phone call. I was like walking along the park, and I was like, "Look, I'm not interested in this job." He's like, "Give me a second, let me explain it to you." And within a couple of minutes, the job sounded brilliant, the money was amazing, and I was like, "Yeah, get me an interview there as well." And it was a call that I wasn't even going to take. People can run into somebody at the supermarket, and that could be their soulmate forever that they've never seen before, but they live 2 minutes away. There's just so many things, so you never know what's going to come your way, good and bad. There, but there's always going to
Yeah.
be lessons that you're going to learn from it, no
Yeah,
matter
like
what.
yeah, exactly. Synchronicities I think is very important to believe in, to have like I say, like there's always signs. I mean, not everyone's into like, the angel numbers and things like that, but I truly believe that. Like, when you see that sign and you're driving or you see that license plate and you see numbers that actually resonate with you, like I'm a strong believer in that kind of stuff where I think, okay, this is God, universe, whatever, whoever you believe in is kind of
Yep,
sending this message to you for a reason. Now it's up to you how you want to take it. What perspective do you want to give to this message?
I think so. I think a
Yeah.
lot of it is perspective, the way you look at something, the way you interpret it as well.
Mm.
I can look at it on a work in progress on positive and negative things there because there's certain things that have come my way and I've looked at it in a negative way. Now I try and be more positive, but a lot of the things that come to me in a negative way, I looked at. If I'd looked at it in a positive way, it would have been a completely different set of circumstances and outcome. I chose
Hmm.
to look in a negative way. Oh, it's this a problem? It's this. But in fact, there's actually an opportunity there. I was too blind to see it because I was focused on the wrong perspective there. So when you
Yeah,
make those changes, that makes a massive difference to your life.
100%. And being true and honest with yourself, like, really looking at, like I said, yeah, I don't know if you do shadow work. I just started shadow journaling. I just started doing that, but that's like
Yeah, I've
looking
done
at like,
shadow journaling.
yeah. So just looking at that really dark side of you, because we all have it, and so I think it's about respecting all your emotions and then accepting them, right? And being real with, what, I do have this angry side or, whatever it is that's going on
Yeah,
for you. Yeah, like really being
yeah,
real with yourself, because if you can't do that, you're not going to move forward to heal or to make changes in your life.
yeah. Because you whether it's yourself taking the time to realize and accept who you are, what you are, how you act. I've had clients that are in denial about what they are, and it's in front of me, and I can see it, and they just refuse to accept that that's what. Okay, fine, come back when you're ready. I think when you accept that that's the person that you are, and you act in this particular way, okay, it might be forceful, but that's where you are at the moment, right? Now you've accepted that, you can actually start working on it and dealing with it. But until you do, you're never going to be able to work on it.
No, no. Yeah, and that's interesting because that's some of the work that I was doing with a client where we look at the emotion and we actually put it outside of us, right? So you're looking at it like an object, and that emotion might be, let's just say it's envy or it's anger. Okay, well now let's give it a name. Let's give it a color. Let's give it a,
Yeah,
what do you want to envision it? But it's a part of you. So let's give it some compassion. Like, what does that emotion need from you? So I think if you can start like visualizing your emotions in that way, but then actually giving it compassion and respect, it becomes easier to say, you know what, it's okay. Like I am myself, like I'm this unique individual who is made up of happiness, joy, but also some envy, some anger. It's all a part of me. There's nothing wrong with that because and this is where I think that self-hatred or those self-doubts about ourselves, that's where that comes from, right? Where it's like you're like constantly fearing judgment. So, so anyways, just preventative work that we can do to kind of build that courage and that confidence, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great. I think what you're doing is brilliant. Absolutely fascinating listening to everything you've got to say. It's been eye-opening. I love the things that you do, like I said,
Too.
and I can see why it makes such a positive difference to the people that you help there, and really inspires them as well. Your podcast is amazing there as well, and I generally
Thank
can't
you.
wait for them to come out. Angie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and taking the time today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an amazing discussion, and I look forward to having more of these discussions with you in the future.
Definitely, I can't wait. Thank you.